Coming up today on David versus Goliath.
I mean, truffles are amazing, and people get shot over truffles.
The problem is if you don't take that move, you're going to become laziness, and procrastination is the enemy of time and discipline if you're going to go for all the marbles.
I really realized that the closer I could get the product, the more important it would be, because in the game industry, it's all about the fun and all about the product.
You can tell, and all my clients, just so you know that they were trained by me because everyone's like me.
I'm wearing a circle. Iron Man sucks!
Welcome to today's episode of David versus Goliath, a podcast dedicated to helping small businesses leverage technology to not only help them compete against their large competitors, but win. Your host is currently the CEO of Anthem Business Software, a three-time Inc. 500 recipient, and a serial entrepreneur with a passion to help small businesses everywhere find, serve, and keep more customers profitably. Please join me in welcoming your host, Adam DeGraide.
Hey everyone, it's Adam DeGraide with the Hurricane edition of the David versus Goliath podcast. Today we're going to be looking at the all-stars of quarter 3 here on David versus Goliath podcast. Today's episode is brought to us by AutomateMySocial.com. If you're a small business and you're a service-based business, you can automate 100% of your social media among all your channels and never have to think about it again. That's true, by the way. Nobody needs to manage it. Think about it. Run it. It's going to run itself. It's an amazing product. If you do offer specials and incentives, then you can automate about 90% of it. Either way, if you're a small business, you got to go check it out. AutomateMySocial.com. Also, visit us online at davidvsgoliathpodcast.com. There you can subscribe to receive our newsletters and apply to be on the podcast. We look forward to getting your application. Many of the guests you're going to hear from today on the All-Star episode have done exactly that. Well, we're going to start off right now with Slater Victorov. I want to make sure I'm getting that right. Slater Victorov, I am. Artificial intelligence was the subject. This was several weeks back. It's a great discussion. Plus, if you like mushrooms, he likes mushrooms. Let's go for it. Let's hear from Victor. You know, everyone always throws the word around AI. AI this, AI that. There was a movie made AI. And I think there's a lot of not only misconceptions and misinformation in regards to AI, but I think a lot of people don't even understand conceptually what it is. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go from there and talk about your business.
Yeah, and I think the first thing I'll say at the highest level, right, is AI is such a broad space, right? Frankly, I was just talking about this. I just posted this on Twitter. There's so much cool research coming out in this space that even me, someone who is, full-time, just like trying to keep up with everything that's happening, not even across the entire field, even in like my, it's a significant segment, right? But it's not 100% of everything happening by any means. So that's maybe the first thing, right? Is it means a huge number of things to a huge number of people, right? And it's a broad enough term, AI, that it's kind of hard for me to say like, yes, that counts. No, that doesn't. In the strictest form, one of the things that's really interesting about AI has a definition that shifts naturally over time. So very, very vaguely, right? AI is the act of using computers for anything that computers are not traditionally used for at that time, right? Like back like 50 years ago, right? Like, the buttons in an elevator, that was AI, right? Or like your rice cooker knowing when to turn off, right? Like that was AI. But because now, that's assumed, that's not AI anymore. And so it is something that, does intrinsically drift over time, which, it makes it confusing.
And so one of the questions we have here is what do you do to relax, basically, And you said, do you collect anything? And you said, I forage. I think forage is the word.
Forage, yeah.
Forage for mushrooms.
I forage for mushrooms.
I watched that movie and I saw the relationship that Nicolas Cage had with his truffle pig. And it was such an interesting movie because you don't realize that that's a real thing, that people forage for mushrooms. I take them for granted. I love mushrooms. I make mushroom omelets in the morning, and I like mushrooms on my burger. And if I have a chicken dish with mushrooms on it, I'm psyched, So I didn't realize that it was something you could do to relax. Tell us a little bit about that. That's fascinating.
Well, so let's start here. Like when you're talking about mushrooms, I'm guessing you're talking primarily about like white button mushrooms, right? The agaricus genus, if you will.
Or truffle.
Okay, sure, yeah. I mean, truffles are amazing, and I will say, truffles are at like one really extreme end of the spectrum. Like people get shot over truffles. I'm not trying to mess with that.
About the pig was a truffle. It's a master truffle pig, and the pig's stolen from him. And so
I see. Yeah.
Like Liam Neeson's movie where one of his kids is stolen.
Yeah. But like with a truffle pig.
But it was an actual pig, yeah.
Oh, damn, yeah. Okay, so here's the thing that, was amazing to me. And I think I got into, mushroom foraging in a completely accidental way. I think it's one of the interesting things where it ended up being perfectly aligned with the pandemic, right? I was out in northern New Hampshire, I guess like central New Hampshire, right, with my friend rock climbing. And it was like an amazing, amazing year. There was so much rain. And so there were just like mushrooms everywhere. And I knew like the barest small little amount of mushrooms, right? So my cousin was like a PhD in mushroom science, and I was like, oh, like that's kind of cool, right? I didn't really think much about it, right? Because I think growing up, right, and in the US, I didn't realize this, but we have a very mycophobic kind of mentality, right? We're like, mushrooms are going to kill me. Right, like those are terrifying, right? Like
mushrooms,
right? Yeah, no, it's like literally that's like my cousin showed up, and literally she shows up with a mushroom, and I'm like, that's going to kill me, right? That's my first reaction. And she was like a PhD and like very smart, so we like ate it, and like that's amazing. Not only is that like the most delicious mushroom I've ever had, and this was a hen of the woods, but it's like, but I've never seen anything like that. I didn't even know mushrooms could look like that, and so that was kind of the first taste. But then what happened is like I was up in New Hampshire, it was like this amazing summer, and we found like literally 10 pounds of hen of the wood mushrooms just growing out of the base of this oak tree. And it was like the luckiest we ever could have gotten, because the thing is like nothing else looks like that, right? I mean, this is one of the most delicious, mushrooms you can find out there, right? And
you said, just for the viewer, it's
hen of the woods.
Matter of fact, right now,
Grifola fonderosa.
I wanted to before we continue. So, hen of the woods. Right now, my producer is putting up for the watchers a picture of what these things look like. So you're looking at them right now. We're not able to see them, Slater, because this is going to come in the editing later. But he right now just showed people what hen of the woods is. I don't know if I've ever had it. So what is the difference in like their shape, their color, their texture?
They're like, so, and if we're gonna, bring up some images afterwards, I think the best example I can give here is like a lion's mane mushroom or a bear's head tooth. The thing is that the mushrooms that you've been exposed to, right, even if you're talking about like everything you've ever seen at a supermarket, it's such a limited portion of the whole mushroom kingdom, right, or the fungus kingdom, right? Like think about it like vegetables, right? It's like there's a whole kingdom of vegetables, right? Like fungi, it is a kingdom, right? It is like that large. It's got that kind of diversity to it, right? But like you've only ever seen like like lettuce and broccoli. That's like the equivalent, I think, of folks with their mushroom experience. So the taste is completely different, right? Like there are spicy mushrooms out there, there's smoky mushrooms out there, right? There are like really meaty mushrooms out there, right? There's sour mushrooms out there, right? There's a mushroom out there, shrimp russula, crab brittlegill. It is also called a shrimp russula, but like very confusingly, it's a crab mushroom. Shrimp of the woods is a totally separate thing, but it has the taste and consistency of shrimp. Like it smells fishy, right? And that was the most amazing thing. Is like my mother lived up in Northern California, which is like one of the most amazing places that you can possibly look for mushrooms. And you just like go into the forest and you find, once you start looking for them, they're just everywhere. And imagine that you could like walk into the woods and like pick up on the floor like a top grade Wagyu steak, right? That's the analogy I give people, right? And like the secret is just like it was there, right? Like it was possible the whole time, right? And like you never knew about it because people are still kind of like afraid about it.
Slater, thank you so much for joining us on the David versus Goliath podcast. It was awesome. I had a lot of fun with you. Well, this is a guest that's close to my heart. I actually found out about this individual because I bought a piece of his art. And this is a great episode with pt1. If you are a creative or you love creatives and you want to support their businesses, what an amazing episode. This was episode 47. Let's hear from Pete. Let's get right to it. I learned about Pete because my wife and I were strolling through a gallery in Napa, California, just having a great time. And this piece just struck me. I'm going to put it up right now on my iPad, but my actual producer is going to put the real one up so people can see a higher quality. This is the picture right here. And I walked in and you know, one of the things about my wife and I, Pete, that I think you'll appreciate is we love art, number one. We're creatives ourselves. And at the end of the day, when we see something we like, we have to have it. And when I saw that picture entitled For All the Marbles, the thing that appealed to me was obviously the character of the lion, but what was really intriguing was the messaging behind it. And it was basically like, you know, if you want all the marbles, you can't just sit on the couch and let time burn. You got to get out and work. And I thought that was just so awesome. And as I started to look at some of your other pieces of art, I was really inspired. And so just so everyone understands, I'm a paying customer of Pete. Pete did not give me a piece of art to be on my show. I met Pete because I bought his art and I believe in what he's doing. And I begged him to come on the David versus Goliath podcast, because one of the things I love here at the David versus Goliath podcast, Pete, is we have businesses of all shapes and sizes. And so for the watchers and the listeners, your journey I was reading on the info form is fantastic. I don't want to spoil your thunder. Tell them a little bit about how Pete ended up where he is right now in that studio and where your journey began and how you got to where you are today.
That's not a short story. That's a long story, mate. My life has been a conversation in itself, and it's a good conversation. Started off not knowing, again, when you're a teenager, you don't know what you want to be. And in Australia, the life as an artist wasn't really a viable choice. I didn't know anybody who was. I didn't know anyone who really collected art, so I never even thought anything about. There's a creative streak in my family when I look back, but nobody did anything with it. And so I became the rudimentary electrician and did really well, loved it. Did my 4-year course and was about to open up a business. I was working 2 jobs at the time to create a big nest egg to create a business. So a nightclub at night, and I was working 7 days a week as an electrician. At 23, I thought I'd just go for a quick surf before I started the business. And in Australia, you know, we go for a month or so for a quick surf. And so I would, it's a different lifestyle now I see it. It's great. But I ended up doing France, Spain, Portugal. And I just kept going. So I hadn't planned on it. So what I had on me was what I had on me. There was a lot of hurdles. Homesickness is a real thing. It's the lack of security and friends and family. I got over that. And once I got over that, my life opened up to so many adventures. I ended up filling 3 passports, would work where I needed to work when I needed to work. Really didn't have any plans. One of my favorite stories, it sounds funny because it sounds like I'm saying somebody else's story, but it was my life. I remember getting in touch with a mate from Australia who I knew was somewhere in the world. He ended up being in Canada, told me to meet him in California. That's how I ended up creating Roots here. He found me, and then we went through Mexico. We decided to surf through Mexico. And as we're driving through Mexico, he said, "Hey, you want to go to Costa Rica?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you know where it is?" No. It was all the way. I quickly figured out where it was, and this was prior cell phones and everything.
Yeah.
So
I love what I love about your story so far is that, man, life is an adventure, right? I mean, and you just let your heart carry you and your free spirit and your love for adventure. And man, I think people admire that. There's a lot of people in their lives, that are like that lion, right? They're sitting on the couch and they're staring out the window and they're wondering why all the marbles that they could have are spilled out on the floor. And the whole time is you just got to get off and get out and get going. I do want to talk about some of the art that you actually do. And because I love the style. I think it's amazing. As a matter of fact, my producer right now is showing the watchers and listeners some of the pieces that you sent to us. So guys, just look at this stuff. It's amazing. Now, Pete, you and I can't see it right now because I'm not able to display it at the same time, but our watchers and our viewers are seeing your artwork. And when I walked in and I saw it, I was blown away. And I have the list of all the pieces that you sent here to me. I would love for you to pick one, and let's talk about that particular piece a little bit, about either A, what inspired you, or B, you do a lot of commission work as well too.
Yes.
So let's first start with a piece that you created because you wanted to. What would that piece be called?
Well, let's talk about the one that you have, All the Marbles. I paint a lot of the pieces, or all the pieces that aren't commissions, come to me via a conversation like we're having right now, along with deep thought. And sometimes I'm on a track and then sort of veer off, and I'll have to make notes saying, hey, this could be a new piece, or this could do a new subject matter that I wanted to visit. My thoughts about life in all my travels. Well, let me jump back. I used to paint coastal scenes because that's all I knew. It was my calming of who my personality was now that I look back on it. And it wasn't until about 7-8 years ago where I had trouble supporting my family. I have a wife and daughter. And through a long show that I do that's a live show, high on coffee, high on stress, but not giving up, came this vision. And it started off as a self-portrait, because when I was in my sister's place in Canada, I put a couch on the track in the field and took photos of it with me on it.
Interesting.
And then that was before I was even an artist, or the painting artist. And I decided at this point in time, I'd been looking for my voice, and I started painting this piece just out of frustration, completely off the cuff from what I was painting. And as I'm overly thinking it, stressed out, the story started to come. It was my self-portrait, but I ended up taking me out and realizing there was a lot of symbolism in it. And I can go further into that symbolism, but we're going to go back to All the Marbles. And so now I look at why we do things, and then I look at symbolism and bring them together into a piece. So for All the Marbles, it's the lion sitting on the couch looking out the window, and he's contemplating. Yeah. He has a very strong look to him, but he's a contemplation. Now, it's funny that we put these feelings towards animals that are wild, that have the personal traits that we hope we have, yet they don't look at us in those matters. They look at us like a piece of meat, right? So he's sitting there and he's contemplating things. If you look, he's got the goggles on his head. So you can sit back and you can contemplate where you want to go in life, because if you look, there's all papers flying around. Not every napkin sketch can make its way into fruition.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're going to have to take that adventurous leap, knowing you're going to lose the art of momentum if you don't move. And that adventurous leap will help you fill in the gaps of the things you don't know, right? Now, as you look forward out that window and you start making those moves, the problem is if you don't take that move, you're going to become laziness, and procrastination is the enemy of time and discipline if you're going to go for all the marbles.
Pete, thank you so much for spending time with us on the David versus Goliath podcast. Well, it's time to take our first break from our corporate sponsor, Automate My Social. We'll be right back.
Do you own a business? Do you have or need a social media presence? If you are like most businesses, you spend either no time or too much time and money on your social media strategy, spending thousands of dollars per month only to get mediocre and inconsistent results. This leads to frustration and, in some cases, sleepless nights. Introducing AutomateMySocial.com. Automate 90% of your social media and never have to think about it again. That's right. Automate your business's social media posting and strategy like forever. Automate the essentials and customize only what's needed. Save time, save money, and get better results with AutomateMySocial.com. Our patent-pending technology gives you the ability to automatically create your social post and distribute them immediately, like in seconds, across all your social media platforms. Stop the madness of paying someone to create, post, and manage your strategy, and let our software do the work, so you don't have to. Oh, and if you're an agency or social media manager, you too can let our software do all the work and you can get all the credit. It will be our little secret. With AutomateMySocial.com, you can have it all. It's easy to use, never complains, and never asks for time off or more benefits. See this amazing new software application at AutomateMySocial.com. If you own a business or manage client social media and want to save time, energy, money, all while increasing your return on investment, then let's get this party started at AutomateMySocial.com.
And we're back on the David versus Goliath podcast. This was exciting. Episode 48 was with a gentleman named Tom Dusenberry, who's responsible, by the way, for one of the most successful acquisitions in commercial history. Like gaming history, commercial history, any history, it's amazing. He used to be the former CEO of Hasbro Interactive. This is an awesome episode. Let's hear from Tom right now. You know, you and I have never talked before. This is the first time we've ever spoken. When I was reading your sheet, it was like reading almost like my own life story in a lot of ways. I'm a huge gamer. I've been playing games since Commodore 64 came out. Like, my brother used to program video games. I'd come home from school and he'd be like, hey, check out this video game. I'm a huge gamer right now. I play a game called Apex Legends, which is by a company, as you know, EA, a division called Respawn that they have. I play it every day. I've played it every day for the last 3 years. So much so, Tom, that I actually just recorded a rock album with 7 songs, and the entire album is dedicated to the characters of the game. And I just released it. It's called the Adam Music Project. And the fans are going nuts because when you, to your point, if you do something fun and you enjoy it, people will do it over and over again. And you've seen now over the years, gaming has taken on a whole new life, right? I mean, you have Comic-Con where you can go and people dress up like the characters of their favorite game. They immerse themselves with fan art, which is what I just did. I called it the Ultimate Fan Art Project, where I've immersed myself so much into this that it was so much fun that it became a big part of my life. Drives my wife crazy, but I can't help myself. It keeps me young, Tom. You know, I'm in these first person shooters with like young kids trying to survive, and it's a lot of fun. But you did say something fascinating too, and I don't want it to be lost. You mentioned that you started out at Parker Brothers in the delivery center. Is that correct? And then 20, 30 years later, or whatever it was, you became the CEO, and that truly is a David versus Goliath story. Tell the listeners a little bit about that journey. So you didn't just go from doing that to the CEO. What was that progression like? You know, briefly.
Yeah, it really is an amazing story because when I was growing up, I didn't know it, but I'm just dyslexic. And so for me to be marginalized all the time, where even in my family, if my sister and my brother got an A, they would get $5. If I could get a C, I'd get $10. And it was during the time nobody really knew what dyslexia was and what the circumstance was. So when I got out of high school, all my buddies went to college, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I got this job at Parker Brother Games. And it was amazing because what I found was that there was more to life than just being able to do, proper English and that type of stuff. And what they really cared about was hard work ethic. And what they cared about was new ways to do things. And that really fit in well with me. And, it was an amazing journey, Adam, from a point of view that here I was, this lost kid, and the first thing that happened to me was that the government put in this thing called OSHA, and it was a safety type of a thing for employees in factories. And nobody knew what it was, but our factory had a lot of problems. People were getting their fingers cut off, there were back injuries, and I took that as an opportunity and really focused on that. And that differentiated me from the other people. And all of a sudden, the people on the East Coast, which was where the headquarters was, realized that there was some talent that was in Iowa, and I was able to transfer myself from Iowa to the East Coast. And that was the big change for me, because now I was in corporate life. And what I found was that I really realized that the closer I could get the product, the more important it would be, because in the game industry, it's all about the fun and all about the product. So I went through this journey where, I was like a material planner, I was a purchaser, and then I had a break and an opportunity to switch to sales. And in sales, I did both sales promotion, but then I did alternate sales, and that's when Atari came along. And nobody really knew how to sell Atari, so I found this small account called Toys R Us. And they were just a real regional account, and all of a sudden they took off because video games took off, and I was right there with them. And so sales was a great area for me. And then I had an opportunity to transfer into marketing, where I did primarily marketing support. So whether it was advertising, international, promotion, ad licensing, I was responsible for all of that. And so when you look back, all of a sudden, I was really skilled in being able to build the product. I was really skilled in being able to sell the product. I was really skilled in being able to market the product. And then I switched over to the best part of all, and that I became the head of inventor relations for Parker Brother Games. And all it was creativity and innovation. And it was an amazing ride. During the 5-year period I was there, in the last 3 years, we had 8 and 9 of the top 10 games came out of Parker Brothers. And that, of course, was what Hasbro saw, Alan Hassenfeld specifically, and he invited me to join him on a journey of innovation. And I came back and I said, the future is all about the internet, and the future is all about interactivity. And that created Hasbro Interactive and put me on the journey of video games.
And that's when you became the CEO of right? Was Hasbro
Interactive? I became the CEO of Hasbro Interactive, correct. I was reinventing myself all the time. And having to reinvent myself internally to people. And I felt that, one thing that I did that I think that others didn't pay attention to was that whenever there was like an acquisition or a change in management, that meant that there was a new opportunity to reinvent yourself. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when I was switching from marketing to sales, it was because there was a new company taking over, and all of a sudden there was a new leader that I wanted to be supportive of. But I felt that was really critical. But I also think that you need to have an end goal. And that is that for me, once I realized that I was pretty good at this stuff, the thing that I really wanted to focus on was innovation and leadership. Yeah. And for me, I felt that, that was like the top guy, because if I could run the engine, meaning getting really good games into the company, and then lead a group of people that were 10 times smarter than me, the result could be pretty exciting. And so that's what it was all about, was really to focus on what you're really good at and try to get yourself into the position where you can take advantage of what you're really good at. And so for me, once I got to innovation and leadership, it kind of was what I've done the rest of my career.
Tom, it was awesome being with you. I'm so glad. Tom's actually helping me right now with my game that's going to be coming out over the next several months and maybe a year from now in the States. But it's pretty exciting. Well, after that, we had episode 49 with Julie Lawton. She was a hoot, an absolute hoot, from Southern California, out in the Laguna, Newport Beach area, which is one of the places in my life that I like to spend the most amount of time as possible, without living there, mind you. Taxes are terrible. Politics are horrible. That's just my opinion. But anyway, I am so grateful to have interviewed Julie. Let's hear from her right now.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly. So what I is I'm like an anal retentive little draftsman architect, and I like to draw and design. So to this day, it all starts with a good plan. But my very, very first jobs in New York, my internships were architects, and they sent me in the field because I was the only girl in the office. So instead of the guys, they just laugh and they sent me to do all the dirty work, which is me measuring the 100,000 square foot spaces with the plans, getting the plans right, standing in the dirt, getting whistled at by all the Italian and Irish workers. It was brutal. I mean, it was union. You can't even go anywhere in the construction, but they love me because I'm this girl in the 80s with high heels and a skirt. So I'm in there making things happen, working with the top developers, making them change their building design so the furniture works. It was like I was thrown in by my boss at 24 years old, and they said to me, Julie, you've made it in New York, so if you do it here, you can make it anywhere. But what happened is because I was thrown in young, because my boss wasn't a designer. She needed me to work with them. So I ran this whole team of men and a draftsman and all these guys that would help me do the furniture. So what happened is I moved to California because there was a recession in New York. So I moved to California and I was so proud of my career, but I couldn't find a job because I was overqualified at my age and it freaked me out. So I was forced to get a job in an arena I was not comfortable or new in. So I got a job selling kitchens on Robertson Boulevard in Beverly Hills. And that led to me selling and designing $1 million of cabinets and kitchens custom and in everybody's home everywhere. And I got noticed, and that drug me to Newport and Laguna. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, I become the contractor because I can't stand working in residential because without the structure of commercial, because I'm used to very professional, because that's what I learned in New York City, no nonsense. All my business skills came from Manhattan, from the best. So when I was forced out of the nest, the protective nest of getting a job with an architect or getting a job with another developer, I had to start my own business to survive. And it was survival. You have to start.
Yeah. What year was that you started your own business? You realized, okay, I'm doing great at selling sinks and designing them.
1991.
1991. So in 1991, think about this, watchers and listeners. She started her own business because she really needed to find a place for herself and she loved what she was doing. And she said, there's no place for me to go because I'm overqualified at my age. I'm going to start my own. And in 1991, all the way to today, in 2022, here we are. You have a very successful business. How many homes have you, since you started your company, have you custom designed and remodeled?
The total is more than 1,000, even though I only say 500. But if you start from 91 and all those homes I was in LA and Palos Verdes and Malibu, oh my God, I was everywhere. That's 1,000 plus homes of me hand drawing and drafting and working with the homeowner. So it's a lot. It's like a doctor who's delivered 2,000 babies,
That's so funny, man. A doctor, you've delivered baby. I tell people this all the time. Like when I build software and we install our clients on them, it's like a delivery. It's like you're giving birth to a vision and something that has life behind it. And people who live in their homes, they spend most of their lives there. And so to be able to create an environment for them, that's fantastic. It's awesome. I talk about the 5 smooth stones that every business needs to have. And the first one is people. Then you have the right process, the right tools. There's also the right plan. Actually, it starts with plans and goals, the right people, the right technology, the right process, and then courage. With your team, when you hired them, what kind of culture, how important was it for you that you made sure you got the right team members to match we're going to get this done. We're going to be professional. We're going to get it done quick, efficiently, and on time. What did you do to find those people? And then how did you train them in what I like to call the Julie Lawton way, so to speak?
Well, you can tell, and all my clients, just so you know that they were trained by me because everyone's like me. So they're like me because we do have it's plans, process, procedure, execution. So the thing is, I have a secret system where if they can make it through the first hour of conversation with me, we're good. Meaning we have to match, and I can tell that first of all, people are number one. That's it in life. Number one, relationships. It's number one. You can't have someone you work with that you don't get along with, or they don't follow, or they're not in sync with you, no matter what you're doing, hiring or whatever. So I have a process where I interview them and I see if they like me and they understand that I'm super high energy, super efficient, super fast. I do not like to repeat myself, but on the other hand, I'm an educator, I'm a trainer, I'm a leader, and I'm ridiculously patient. Because I've literally groomed my people to serve the client 5-star, and that's what we're about. It's about the client and the experience and the trust. So when you see my men, they're dressed clean, their shirts are clean, they're polite, they're courteous. The job site's like nobody else's job site. And then our efficiency on response and email time and the way we handle the client is how I do it. So the thing is they have to be in sync with me almost immediately. And I can tell by their personality, because a lot of them, my people have come to me and then they never leave, of course. And then they refer me to people that are like them. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
but
that is.
There is an art to it. And I think it comes naturally to me.
Julie, thank you so much for joining us. It was an awesome interview. Right now, here's another special message from another amazing sponsor on the David versus Goliath podcast.
At ISU RMAC Agency, we want to be your one responsible source for all of your insurance needs. From a rocket engineer in California to several hospitals in Illinois, our personal lines team specializes in hard-to-place risks and high-net-worth clientele. With 2 locations and 20-plus agents, we can write in all 50 states to better serve our clients with needs in multiple states. Family-owned and operated since 1962 and 4 generations carrying on the tradition of insurance. Celebrating our 60th year in the industry, we are truly proud of where we have come from and where we are going. With over 300 carriers nationwide, our agency can offer individuals and businesses more choices and better prices. ISU RMAC brings a wide variety of solutions to the table. For more information, visit us online at www.isu-rmac.com.
Episode 50 with Hamid El-Samadisi. I can't believe I said that again. I think I even pronounced it properly. I had a blast with this, and we learned why his Iron Man is better than the real Iron Man. Let's get right to it. One of the things that I couldn't help but, and I'm sure everyone asks you about it, is how you began in technology. Was you worked on autonomous vehicles, so vehicles that drive themselves. Mm-hmm. And, why don't you give the watchers, listeners a little bit about, A, what you're doing now, and then how you got there?
Yeah, so today our focus, we do leverage AI, but our focus is in helping people answer questions. So Narrator is a data platform that allows you to ask and answer any question in minutes. And the magic of it, the whole thing happens while data is in your data warehouse using a single table. So it's a very unique approach to answering questions, and it works really, really well. Inspired by a lot of the work I've done in the past. So backstep my career 3 steps. Before this, I built out a data team at WeWork. So got to build out their infrastructure, grew the team, so a lot of fun stories there. And then before that, I did AI for missile defense, tracking discrimination, really dealing with fast-moving objects going out of space and inside and what you do there. And before that, I was in self-driving cars. And self-driving cars in 2010, which is, if you guys don't know, like where a lot of the cars initially started from, known as the Darba Urban Challenge. And I spent a lot of time, again, working on tracking and localization. So where does a car, how do you know where it is? How does a car know how to navigate the world with error, with uncertainty, and really make it that experience that we have today?
I'm not a big fan of self-driving cars yet. I think it's going to take. I love the feel of holding the wheel and driving it myself. I have a lot of cars, and I enjoy driving them. And I've recently driven I rented a Tesla when I went to Oklahoma City, and you have the option. And I couldn't bring myself to try it. In your experience, I mean, how safe is that really still to this day? Is it safer than letting a human drive for real?
It's safer than a lot of humans. So, think about it this way.
That's the best thing. That's the best thing anybody's ever said. It's safer than a lot of humans.
Yeah, because that's the point, right? The point of self-driving car is not to compete with the elite driver who's alert and aware and is focused. It's to help with the tired driver who's driving for 4 hours and is okay, like I want to get there, but like I'm not as focused because I'm exhausted. And those drivers make so much more mistakes. And all you have is a vehicle that's looking around. This is actually the same thing in narrator. When we think about answering questions, like we don't want to replace your intelligence to answer the question. We actually don't want to like just we don't give you an answer. Like, we're not like, hey, X matters. You'll be like, fuck off. I need to do my job. I need to think about it. What do you know? So what we do is we think about these things as augmenters, like really an ability for you to, if you're driving and a car's coming from a really weird angle and it's moving at fast speeds, that you don't feel like the computer can see that much easier than you can. And the computer can start alerting you, even if it's just flashing, look at your fucking mirror. Like, think about just something as simple as what we had with like blind side detection. Like you're in the mirror and the light turns on. It's nice. It's helping you and it's minimizing the worry that you are as a driver that like if something out of the ordinary happens, you'll be aware, because like just those ability to notice those things is just a lot higher. And in narrator, we do the same thing. Like you might see something and you might see like this is so much better than this. And narrator's like, great, like you could start there, but let us just kind of give you more guidance where the fact that like your business has changed over time. And that might be better in aggregation, but that's really driven by the early customers. And nowadays, it's actually the opposite. All these small things that you're likely to make mistakes in, computers can really just check all of them much faster and tell you what's important without you having to actually go in and do that work. So it's never going to be that replacement.
You know, it's funny because I build software for a living myself as well too. And it really is designed to enable and help highlight areas of strength, cover areas of weaknesses. But back to the car thing, and we're not going to stay in this all the time, I promise you this, but I'm just thinking about it because I bought a few new cars and they all have these settings that won't let me go into another lane without letting the blinker know that I'm going to go in the other lane. So if you're driving down the highway and you start to take a left, it'll try to pull you back. That drives me crazy, that stuff. And so I'm always shutting that stuff off. I go back to the dealership and said, I don't want any of this stuff on. I want to be able to run into anything I want to run into, because I think in some cases that's more dangerous. I'm in a car right now I rented because I'm here on the summer here in California. And I'm driving around in this Mercedes that I can't listen to my music or talk radio. If I'm coming up to somebody and it thinks I'm going too fast, it'll go, shut my music down. So it forces me to say, oh, I got to stop. I was stopping anyway. So I think one of the things that's frustrating to people in general is that technology is great, but when it's tried to be forced on you too much, I think it becomes a detriment in some ways. It can actually do the exact opposite of what we intended it to do. Not that narrator does that. I'm not saying that. Well, I'm saying in just a case of self-driving cars in this awareness system of like, oh, you're an idiot. You're going too fast. You need to slam on the brakes. I mean, and then the brakes will lock on you. It's crazy when I'm driving totally fine.
And so I would say that's shitty software.
That's my point. That's my point. Not all software is created equal.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't say that's the problem with the intelligence of a car. So we have this thing all the time in narrator as well. Like, here's the funny thing. We do a lot of stuff that is, people always say like, why don't you just run every possible combination and then tell me what matters? And I'm like, because nobody was going to do anything with that. Like, I want it to be actionable with what you're doing today. I want it to be English. I want it to explain to you. I want you to read it and thoughts or evidence. And I think it's that level of little nuance that matters. Like, if you're already hitting the brake, like the computer's job is to guide you, not ensure the action. And I think a lot of times, and this happens in data software, some data software tries to give you the answer. They forget that the answer is actually garbage. No one cares. The job is to get you to take action. That's it. So if you're already taking the action, me telling you, like if 99% of all your customers are women and me telling you women convert better than men, you're like, cool. Like, you don't care. If you're driving and you're braking and it's like, brake, you're just like, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, I already know that. And now your brain starts ignoring those signals as important.
Yeah.
So less signals, better signals, signals that are designed to get you to do something, not get the car to do something. And I think that little nuance is the difference between quality and shit. Like, and that's it. So like if I was designing a car, my goal would be, how do I get you to hit the brake? How hard to hit the brake? I would trust you on that. But I want to make sure you're actually hitting the brake. But the cars are looking and saying, oh, you're still so close. No, we got to warn you. And it's like, no, you know what you're doing.
On your website that I was reading about you before you came on, it says that you made a better Ironman out of rubber. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Okay, so here's the problem with Ironman. Ironman sucks. And there's many, many reasons why Ironman sucks. One of the biggest reasons is that for Ironman to walk like in the street, it's using the same amount of energy as if Ironman is walking through a wall. Mm. And that level of animation, like when you actually go to build real Ironman, what happens, you have to predict the leg motion and you have to walk and you have to move the entire thing to move. It's also very heavy and dense, which means you need a huge power source. In the movie, they invent a nuclear reactor that fits in your thing, but in reality, you don't have a nuclear reactor.
I'm wearing a circle. I'm wearing a circle in honor of Iron Man. Iron Man sucks.
But it's true. So there's so much energy used in Iron Man, and it's so inefficient. And then when you have these ginormous things, there has to be a cooling system to not have the person in Iron Man overheat and die. So you're talking about a very heavy, not movable, highly energy inefficient system because it's made out of it. So Iron Man has a bunch of benefits. One of the benefits is super strength and being able to move things. So it turns out what you can do is rubber is elastic.
Yeah.
What that means is that if you wear a rubber suit and it's like open, when you're walking, it's zero energy because you're just stretching the rubber. But rubber, if you pressurize it with imagine liquid nitrogen, which is pretty much, imagine a big paintball gun, and you put that much air pressure, as you know from your car, that can apply a lot of pressure. Like deforming that to spaces out can apply a lot of force. So the idea of building the Ironman out of rubber was that you can understand if someone's struggling and allow them to pick up a desk or pick up a person or pick up something and run with it as if it's nothing, because you can get so much more force into your body thanks to that pressure tank, but the suit still being light, and you don't have to build an air system, you don't have to make it cost $1 billion, you don't have to build an entire energy system to use it. You can have something that's gives you super strength, but still super cheap to build and super easy and lightweight to use when it's not active.
And that rounds out all the interviews, the first 5 of the third quarter here on David versus Goliath. It was awesome. We had such a great time. Hopefully my house is still standing. We don't know yet. The hurricane should be coming in a few hours. It's getting pretty bad outside. But anyway, great to spend some time with you guys this week. Hope you enjoyed the recap, and we'll see you next week on the David versus Goliath podcast. Have an awesome day.